I'm waiting for my cousin to come on. And good afternoon. Hold on just for 1 second, you guys. I hope you guys are having a great afternoon while I'm waiting for him to come on. I had a productive day. Had to, of course, make the donuts, but I'm grateful that I am here and I am in the land of the living. Also, before he comes on, again, my show is Keeping It Real Conversations with me, myself, Sunshine. I go on to say that I believe in 6 degrees of separation, and it has been happening since the show has started. The connections that are being made, and the connections have been made. Um, he's on. He's on. Also, I let you guys know how I know the person that's coming on. So hopefully, I see him being connected. Hopefully, we can get the audio and his video. Larry, can you hear me? Can you hear me? I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now,
Okay.
but I can't see you.
Now, here I am.
There you are. Hello.
Oh, it's taken a while for us to do this.
Well, we're here now.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you. So I was telling the people I believe in 6 degrees of separation, and it is a true concept. And also, I let the people know how I know the person that I'm interviewing or I'm having a conversation with.
Okay.
So, you guys, this is my cousin, my blood, Larry Johnson. And I must tell you, while I have everyone's audience, that I have admired you from afar. I don't know if you knew this, but you
No.
were one
Oh,
of the people that uh, you command the room even though you're not asking for attention. It's like you're the smart guy in the room, and he's like, what does he have to say? I want to know what he has to say.
well, thank you. I'm humbled.
And I have, of course, you're much older than me, so I had to every time the family would get together and you were there, you always was having a nice conversation about things in the world, things that was going on in the family, all sorts of trinkets of information. So I found out from a little birdie that you were, is it true, ex-military?
Yes, I am. I spent 20 plus years in the Army.
Hmm.
I retired in 1992. Come to think of it, it's been a while. but yeah, I spent 20 plus years in the Army. Uh, I was primarily what we call an intelligence officer most of that time. And I graduated from a military college as well.
Wow. So like, is it West Point? Something like that?
I went to, at that time, there were four private military colleges, private slash state, and schools like Virginia Military Institute in Virginia, North Georgia. Uh, Let me see. There are a few others, and my school, Pennsylvania Military College. So I'm a 1971 graduate of Pennsylvania Military College.
So how does something like that happen? Is that did the military come for you, or this is something you always wanted to do?
Well, as your brothers can tell you, your older brother, I had always wanted to be in the military ever since I was a little kid. And as your uncle Aswa Isa, your brother Aswa always says that whenever we got together, I was always carrying a swagger stick and pretending to be the officer in charge. And so I was in junior ROTC in high school, and I was one of the first 4 year ROTC recipients, scholarship recipients for the state of Michigan in 1967. And so I received a 4 year scholarship, and I selected Pennsylvania Military College as to the college that I wanted to go to.
Wow. So for all those who don't understand what he just said, so he always, as even a kid, that he always wanted to go into the military. Not only that, but he was in intelligence. So a little birdie also told me you worked in the Pentagon.
Yeah, I did have a tour in the Pentagon and the greater Washington, D.C. area, doing stuff that I can't tell you about.
Of course.
so, so yeah, I did. I had several tours in the greater Washington, D.C. area. And so most of that time I was in Washington. Uh, I was in the intelligence business. And sometimes because at that time, the Army forced you to have multiple specialties.
Okay.
So one of my other specialties was acquisition management. And acquisition management is a fancy term for dealing with project management. So I also worked uh, in that field uh, while having several tours in the greater Washington, D.C. area.
Wow. Yes, I you came highly recommended to me to you need to talk to your cousin. And as I said before, as a young person growing up in the Johnson clan, and I must say I have to toot the horn for my family. We have a lot of professionals in
Yes.
our family, from teachers on down to preachers to intelligence, like my cousin, nurses, doctors. We have it. It's in our family,
We've been
and
blessed.
I sat there a couple of times, and I'm like, this man is super smart. And I sat there and I wanted to know more and more about just life in general from you, from my elders in my family. Again, like I said, I believe you're older than my mother, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, I am. In fact, uh, when we were in when we were young adults,
Hmm.
your mother always wanted to go with us, and she was pesty, and so we'd always shoo her away. I think we were in high school, and she always wanted. And I think Aswad, he had his first car,
Okay.
and so she didn't understand why we wouldn't take her along with us, and so but your mother's dear to me.
Yes. So for all those who do not understand, my mom is the baby of
Yes,
12.
yeah, something like that.
And so of course, as you say, the pesty one,
Yes.
they were a lot older than my mom. So as you can say, she's definitely, um, matter of fact, she recommended me to you guys to be your son's babysitters.
Oh, yeah, okay. It's
And
been a while.
so, yeah, when Sakani and them was really, really small,
Yeah,
I came over a couple of times to, babysit, and I actually got to see you and your wife, Ife, in action. So, a lot of things that you might think no one's paying attention, and that's another thing that I love. When you least expect it, you wouldn't even have no idea how a person actually feels and perceive you.
that's
And
true.
I want to give you and pin you with your flowers while you're yet living, to
Thank you.
understand, even from afar, I have admired you because you're fun, but you're smart as well. Um, and even when your son, not what's the one, the oldest one,
Oh, come on.
I was
He,
living in Alabama and he was on his way somewhere else and he ended up staying with me over the weekend.
yes,
And it's just a good thing that it's still a village. We still need one another.
yes.
And I'm excited that you even took the call to say, hey, cuz I got you whenever you need me. I can't do it on Saturday, but whatever time I can get you, we can have this conversation.
Right.
I feel that it's very important that our elders um, give back to us, middle class, whatever, middle age, and our younger ones, the information you guys know. You guys, at your time, you were during civil rights and all that stuff, correct?
Yes, I, uh, I guess you'd say so. I'm a graduate of Southeastern High School in the city of Detroit, and I remember we had our first walkout when I was a
Okay.
student there, and the issue was over uh, our nickname. I guess we were the Jungleers, and so people wanted, thought that that was inherently racist, calling us Jungleers. And there's a history behind how the school got that name. At the particular time that when Southeastern was built in 1917, the city of Detroit really uh, wasn't as populated,
Mm-hmm.
and Southeastern High School is located, I guess, on Fairview Street. And so it really wasn't a lot of housing uh, in the area. And it was just simply surrounded by a lot of trees. And so during some athletic event, some reporter from the Free Press came out and coined the term, they were in the jungle and jungleers. He coined that phrase. And so by the time I was in high school in the 1960s, I came to Southeastern in 1963, and I graduated in January of 1967. And so during that time period, as the demographics changed in the area, and there were more and more people of color in the area. This was before Finney High School was built. But anyway, the demographics changed after they built Finney High School. And so the long and short of it was that uh, there were some of my classmates, specifically being led by Ed Rickman, who lives in Rhode Island, and he was an assembly person in Rhode Island. And so, but anyway, and as a high schooler, he and a group of other students really took exception to being called Jungleers. And so the school administration, I'm not sure if they took them serious, but anyway, we decided to have a walkout. So, anyways, so that was so civil rights and the whole discussion around issues of race and equity was always at the forefront of the discussions. Martin Luther King had a huge march here in the city of Detroit. Issues of police brutality was always at the forefront. This was before Coleman Young was elected.
Okay.
And so there was always this tension, and that still persists today. And
Wow.
so the school that I went to, Pennsylvania Military College, I was only one of 7 young men of color in my entire class.
Wait. Time out. Did you say one of 7 at the
Correct.
school?
Yes.
Wow. So how did that make you feel?
Uh, we were a very talented group of 7. And so we were very, very race conscious, but we had no option. We were bullied, abused, etc. And some days it was just very physical. Uh, but we, how can I say this? We were always not violent, but but we always knew who we were
Okay.
in that process.
Hmm.
And so we were adamant that our rights would not be trampled on. And we were willing to do, like Malcolm X said, we'll do whatever's necessary to ensure that our rights were not trampled on. And so we gained the respect of our classmates and so forth because we would not be bullied, we would not be turned around, we would not be abused.
Wow. So do you to this day, if they're still alive, are you still in touch with them?
Yes, yes, I am. Uh, I have one of my classmates who lives in Taiwan, and so he and I, in fact, we just finished communicating. And then I have another classmate who lives in Texas, and he and I communicate all the time.
Wow, that's amazing. And I had listen, people, if you don't ask questions, you will not get this information. I had no clue, no idea that this even happened to you and that you are a part of history as as we know it. Even being with Southeastern, I didn't know that. Being one of 7 at your school in military, I had no idea. Like I said, it's a privilege to sit here and listen to history being told to me just by asking a simple question and then
Right.
you answer. And it's like, okay, ask this question. Oh, ask this question. Because now I had no idea that this even happened to you.
Oh yeah, we. I think the lesson that we learned was you have to know who you are, and I was just very fortunate to be with a group of young men who were really solid about who they were are as men and their self-esteem, uh, and we decided to be proactive in our own protection. And
Okay.
so we learned that you can't back down. I'll negotiate with you, but I will not negotiate from a place of weakness with you.
Okay.
And as Martin Luther King said, it's not just simply knowing what you're fighting for, but you really do have to understand what you are really willing to die for. And each of my classmates had that attitude. We were really kind of no nonsense, but we strove for academic excellence. We weren't trying to be separated, but you know, our credo was that you weren't going to denigrate us either, because all of us had history, family history, connected with fighting for this country. That some of us all the way back to the Civil War. On our side of the family, uh, uh, your grandfather and your granduncles all participated in World War II. Uh, on my wife's side of the family, that goes all the way back to the Civil War.
Wow. I
And
didn't know
so,
that.
so we have always been part and parcel of the development as well as fighting for freedom in this country. And so all of my classmates had that attitude. And so we were just always aggressive in protecting ourselves and asserting our rights. And to include, we had an opportunity to, during one of our, we used to have a spring concert kind of thing. And so we also learned that when you are in a position of power, to use it for the sake of your folks. So I was on the committee for the spring dance and so forth and homecoming events. And so I orchestrated that we would have Dick Gregory come in to be one of our speakers.
Wow.
Dick Gregory was, and so we had a private meeting with Dick Gregory, and we forced them to have Martha and the Vandellas. And so
Wow.
we got a chance to meet them. But all this to say that, again, the lesson is know who you are and be willing to stand up for that, because only you can do that. And it's okay to have allies, but you work with issues of equity and solidarity. So that's my lesson learned.
Wow. See, again, I'm excited. I am beyond, you have no idea. I'm so excited just to hear this history. Like, if I would have never had this opportunity to sit here and talk to you, I would have never known that. I would have never known that you met Dick Gregory or Martha and the Vandellas or any of those things of part of being of civil rights. Some of the things that I thought, not that I never believed that these things ever happen. Um, you read it in books, you
Yes,
see it on the movies, you hear some people in their testimonies like yourself, and you like, okay, what would you have done if that was you? What would you, would you be a part of the Black Panthers? Would you be a part of, things that's making changes, whether it's violence or non-violent? And I could never answer the question. Like, I'm all like, I don't do politics, I don't, but at the same time, it's a cause for somebody to be a leader somewhere. Somebody has to do it.
right,
Somebody has to do it.
right.
And so I wanted to also to ask you, with being part of the military and being married for how long have you guys been married now?
Oh, gee whiz. 30, almost 31 years.
Okay.
Right.
Um, how did you feel about the things that have expired or transpired on the national grounds? Like the whole Trump administration, the things that history has constantly been um rewritten. Because I have, even my time, I have never heard of some of the things or seen some of the things that I have witnessed in this these last couple of years. What is your opinion?
Well, it's absolutely undemocratic, but it may not necessarily be un-American. And what I
Mm,
mean by that is that when we look at our ideals with respect to all men are created equal, et cetera, et cetera, that's aspirational. Our so-called founding fathers had an aspirational vision, but you've probably heard this commented on by the punditry on TV, the pundits on TV. They all had slaves, and voting was only for the landed white gentry. And so that's what I meant by the ideal, uh, that the insurrection that we saw on January 6th within the fabric of American history is very much American, because
mm.
oligarchy, those people are wealthy elite, have always had a divide and conquer with respect to poor whites, enslaved people, native people. That's always been their hallmark. And violence has always been a tool in order to assert their power and to keep folks divided. So that's what I meant, that it was very much within the American
American.
mode that we saw on January the 6th. But in saying that, it reminds us that, as you probably heard, that the whole issue of democracy requires work, and requires a vigilant populace, a well-informed populace, and a populace that participates in its governance. It is not automatic. And one of the things that I used to tell, well, once upon a time, I guess I taught an American history class for University of Maryland, that the whole notion of a representative government, uh, it takes a balance. It's like a pendulum. It can swing to the left,
Mm-hmm.
swing to the right. The thing that keeps it steady is the participation of an informed citizenry concerning those ideals. And you can't be lazy in order to maintain a democratic government. And
Mm-hmm.
so the American population became very complacent, became very lazy. White supremacy, or I like to say, the whole notion of the whole notion of the superiority of whites is a construct, is a political construct that goes back even before this country was formed. Those things were being discussed when the first Portuguese sailed into Africa and capturing our ancestors. So it's been a discussion. So, but anyway, so you can't be lazy in order to maintain a democracy.
So, in your opinion, do you ever feel like, or do you think that we would ever get back to a place where we had Malcolm X, we had a Martin Luther King, we had all those who, like you said before, who had a platform to actually speak out? I don't
Well, I,
mean like a religious, type of
I
situation.
think,
I mean an actual civil rights leader, like.
I think it's not so much a focal point that's required. I don't think, I mean, we may have a person that has center stage, but what I am well pleased about is that we have a generation of, from my viewpoint, young people coming up who are lit, who really understand it, and they're doing lots of things within their respective communities. And they do have national platforms. There's no single uh, focal point like a Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. But no matter where you go in this country, you have individuals standing up for indigenous rights. You have people standing up and really dealing with the construct of colorism within our Latinx community. You have lots of voices as opposed to a single voice. And so I'm well pleased about that. And thus I can say I am hopeful.
Wow. The am I let me see. One of your sons went into the military, correct? Or no?
Yes, my eldest son is in the Marine Corps,
Okay.
and he's soon to be a captain in the Marine Corps. And in fact, as we speak, he'll be on his way to California, to the San Diego area, leaving Hawaii. And
Wow.
so that's where he is, as we speak. So he's the logistics officer, and I guess he'll be promoted to captain within the next several months. And my youngest is here in the city of Detroit, and he's involved in healthcare. He's
Okay.
the uh, deputy director of a nonprofit dealing with issues of health equity and health prevention.
Now, I will say this on the flip side too. It was very important, and I have to give you kudos again for being a strong black man in your household. You were very, very structured, but you allowed your young men to make their own decisions. And
Mistake.
again, you have no idea. I have been watching you, literally. I have been watching you for years. And so again, I have to give you kudos to you. I remember your sons going to karate.
Yes, yes, they were in karate.
So in that, is discipline there. And even when we talked as growing up, um intelligence exuded from them. Like, you put the time in. And that's what I want to say to you. You put the time in your parenting. You put your time in even with your wife, and it shows. I've never seen her um as sad or anything. It was like, is she human? Like, what
Yes,
is
it
up?
is. We have our moments, but like any couple, but it takes work.
Yes.
It takes work. And one of the things that we used to talk about, and that's the other thing, communication is key. And it's not a cliche. You have to communicate. You have to learn to fight fair. You have to be able to see your partner and realize uh, that you love each other. But my job is not necessarily, and this, I guess I have to explain this. I'm not the center of her world.
Mm,
We are individuals. We're two individuals made in the image of God, coming
mm.
together to form a covenant bond with each other. And so that's always been our approach. And so we always communicate to include communicating, I'm mad at you today and I need some space. I'll talk to you later. And then to have enough respect to my partner's feelings and vice versa to say, okay, she's mad at me today. I need to give her some space.
Mm.
But then coming back and talking it out to to include agreeing not to agree. But then, as we are fondly said, there was never any doubt that in the conflict, she never had doubt that I would walk out the door and not come back. That's not even there.
Wow.
So that
That's
was
deep right there. Just that part right there. Because a lot of people, again, the knowledge that has to be passed on is no if, ands, buts about it. Our elders have to teach.
I agree. I agree. And we haven't really done that well enough. Uh, I just remember being in Kenya, and I remember the people in the family, to include the extended family, would come together, and especially on Sunday, they would go. In this case, they'd go visit their mother in a next village, and all of her sons, the uncles, the nieces, and the nephews, they'd all gather for Sunday dinner.
Dinner. Hmm.
Yeah, that's what we used to do, but this was a little bit more extensive. And they would all sit around and they would talk about all of the things that were happening, but also recount the family history. And so to include naming conventions, uh, I discovered that there were people who could trace not so much their lineage, uh, but the family's migration through the naming convention, could and go back 500 years because you were named after your first uncle once removed, your first cousin once removed. And so the diaspora and the techniques in American slavery took all of that away from us. But there's nothing to preclude us reinstilling those kinds of conventions where we would pass on the lessons learned of just living and surviving and thriving. We haven't done that. And so we don't have to wait for someone else to tell us how to go do that.
Right.
We know how to go do that.
Well, I know for myself, um, with our family, it we went a whole gap without having a family reunion. We have people. I'm like, you have the last name. I don't know if we're cousins or not. I have no idea. There are cousins that are my age that have children now, and I have never met them.
That's correct.
And so a lot of Floridale Johnson, my grandmother, um, Virginia, all of those ones are gone, and outside of my older cousins like you, my mom and her siblings, if they don't say anything, I have no idea. I don't know. And that's almost common in all families these days. Of once the grandma gone, that's it. No one
You're
knows,
right.
or they stop getting together. um we need our family structure back, because now that society has it, or it's been like this, where it takes two incomes to get your family together. um you need a village to help raise your children. You're not out here by yourself. I
Right.
remember growing up on my block on Chelsea, shout out to them. There was always somebody having eyes on us. It wasn't just your child or your house. We took care of everybody on our block. If you didn't have, it was no thing to go next door. My mom asked, can she have a cup of soap powder or some sugar or something so we can get to the store? Everybody shared. Everybody was in the one goal of everybody. If your kids graduated, everybody was a part of it. And I was so happy that my husband now, Johnny Foster, was my
Congratulations.
yes, my husband was my neighbor. He lived two houses over from me, so I know him for forever. And we were looking for a venue to get married last year.
Mhm.
And with the pandemic, the courts was closed, all of this crazy stuff, and it was frustrating until one day we was like, "Well, your mom backyard is big enough. Let's go back." So we end up going back to where we started
Yes.
and got married. So everybody on my block was uh, at the wedding where it all began. And so I had some family members, of course, because of COVID, we couldn't have it as big as I wanted it to. But it was just the fact that my village, where it began, was there to
Right.
see us get married. And so I wish for above all things that people will get back to the structure of family and a village, because we need it.
Well, from a historical perspective, I want you to know, with your grandmother, my Aunt Flora, we always did that. We were always together. We all played together. Most of us went to actually the same school because we all lived really close to each other. And at one point in time, uh, we actually, most of us lived in the same house.
Wow.
After World War II, there was an extreme housing shortage. And so Uncle Roscoe, I guess that would be your grandfather, uh, we all lived in the same house. We had a house in the old Black Bottom on Joseph Campbell, near McDougal. And we it was a huge house, and all of the families lived together. Not your grandmother. They were on Meldrum, so there really wasn't very far from us. But we were all physically together. And then when there was some semblance of desegregation of housing. We all still moved on the east side of Detroit, and we were all still physically together, another, which is another story about the so-called housing discrimination and redlining, and that sort of stuff. But we all ended up still being certainly within a half mile of each other, and thus we all ended up going to the same schools. At one point in time, uh, your uncle Esau and I, uh, and two or three other cousins, we were all in middle school together. We were in high school together. And so, and then we all went to the same one or two churches together.
Mm-hmm.
So we were always together. We had the Sunday dinners, or we had the big parties and that sort of stuff. So when this COVID uh, comes to some semblance of an end, and we're probably looking all the way to the fall, if not a little later, we can rededicate ourselves to just simply getting together. It doesn't have to be anything particularly formal, because a lot of the times the families got together, it was impromptu. Let's go
Right,
have a picnic
right.
in Belle Isle. I mean, it really wasn't all that elaborate. Uh,
Mm.
and so we did those kinds of things when we were growing up. And in fact, uh, sometimes I used to say I didn't want any brothers or sisters because my cousins were always
Cousins,
with me.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, but we don't have to wait. We can do family Zoom calls like we did with Trinita.
I was just
And
about to say that, just
yeah,
like you did with her.
so we don't have to wait, and no one has to be the leader. You can just simply say, okay, today I'm going to have a Zoom call. It doesn't have to be everyone.
Right.
It could be a family. I know families who do at least a monthly or bi-weekly check-in
Okay.
and see how everyone's doing. Do you need anything, etc. So we don't have to wait, and it doesn't have to be so structured.
That's a good idea. Because for those who don't know, my aunt suffered a stroke.
Yes,
And she has been in a facility going on, I believe, 3 years now.
and something like that. Yes,
And so her daughter Trinita, who lives in California, we wasn't able to go visit her because of COVID and things of that nature. And of course, a lot of people don't know when it comes to health, sometimes the human touch, the human physical um, helps you to, rehabilitate yourself, feel like you have another reason to live. And so she said it would be a good idea for her birthday, that we all get on a Zoom call and wish her happy birthday. Everybody say something personally, take a time out, everybody. And it was so many of my family members that I have not seen in a long time that was on a Zoom call. And it just touched me so much that she was able to, in her own way, tell us thank yous, see one by one. We don't know exactly what that did for her, but and my auntie Lamore is she turned, how old did she turn?
I think she's 74 now.
So she's one of the elder sisters of my mom. So for us to actually see her on the Zoom and not being able to see her because she lives in California was a great idea. And so I know you said you had to get off at 3:15. Is
Yes,
that
I
what you said?
do. I'm sorry, but we can do
But
this
it's close to
again.
the time. But I hope you guys enjoy us reminiscing in the little history that you got today for free. And like I said, I appreciate you. I love you. Tell your wife I said hello, my auntie, my cousin rather, and Sakani. Again, soon we'll get together. If like your idea, if it has to be on a Zoom call or just checking in on Messenger, I'm always on Facebook. Um, and we can just connect and get this history either written down or something, because again, our elders are not going to be here forever.
No,
And
no.
I don't want my history to go down to the grave.
We have
Amen.
a lot of
Somebody.
history, and
Lots of history. I
So I
told you my family is very um professionals, I mean, go-getters, leaders. And like again, if they could tell me without having to bump my head against the wall, please tell me.
the other thing, I'd like to leave you with a single word. It's about resilience. And so resilience doesn't necessarily mean not failing. It doesn't necessarily mean that you don't get help, but resilience means that you get back up. And so if nothing else, you get back up. And we, our family, representative of the African American experience in diaspora, we've had family members who got back up. And sometimes you bring two or three other folks with you. Okay. Everyone doesn't have the same level of strength. Everyone doesn't believe in the same God, but it's about being able to reach back and bring somebody else up and being resilient. And so that's what I'd like to leave you with, that we've always dealt with harsh and hard times. We are survivors. And so we've got to learn how to continue to thrive in the midst of adversity. So I'd like to leave you with that.
But I appreciate it. Again, for those who are on, please like and share the video. Again, if you are on YouTube, again, it's Keeping It Real Conversations with Sunshine. Please subscribe. And my cousin, dear old cousin Larry, thank you so much
All right.
again. I
Love
appreciate you
you.
taking the time out to be with me.
Okay. All right. Bye bye. Love.
Bye.